That's too much exposure. Come down.
No! I got it, Cap! My gear's holding up!
I said stand down.
And I said I got it!
Damn it.
Captain, where are you going?
Take me to the site.
Yeah. I think that's just so innately in her that she doesn't know how to stop. She doesn't know. And I think that's what makes her a great firefighter, that she's willing to do whatever it takes. And I like the line where she turns around to Owen and says, well, what would you have done? And he says probably the same thing. And that's what proves that, you know, they're the same type of firefighter. The relationship developed so much over the last 5 seasons to the point where he's now very much a core component of her life, which is really cool. And sometimes it's her social life as well as her work life, which I think happens to the best of relationships when you really get to know people you work with. Sooner rather than later, they start becoming integrated into your life outside of work. And I think that is one of the most spectacular things about our show, is the relationships and how they all started to integrate, and inside work life and outside work life became one and not the same. So yeah, the sort of hand-picked from across America type of thing. And then we all came here, I guess, without families, without friend groups that were already established, and we were able to find that in each other, which I think is a similar dynamic to when you get booked on a TV show and it's not in your city, and you end up with this cast of really dynamic and amazing people who start becoming family because you spend so much time together. It was one of my favorite things I think we've ever done. The scope of the set was phenomenal. Like, it would have been no different if it was a blockbuster movie. I think it was such a big budget and such a what do you call it? Like, optimistic, big dreaming. Everyone was like, can we do it? Will we do it? And we did. And when we showed up on set, I think even Rob was like, oh my God, how did they do this? Because we had been on that set pre-derailment, so we'd seen sort of what it looked like. And then by the next day that we got there, it was like the apocalypse had hit it. It was so amazing. I think some of the acting is really good in that episode because there was not really much acting to be done. We were actually looking at that. It wasn't CGI, it was everything that was there we sort of saw, minus the chlorine cloud. I think probably on the way home, you know, on the way home in the fire truck, once, because I don't think there's any time for that when, you know, Owen's life was in danger and people's life was still in danger. But I think perhaps once Owen was safe and the kid was safe and everything sort of worked out, she was able to look at it from an outside perspective and sort of realize the whole scope of what had happened and what was her doing and what she's good at and what her shortcomings were, which Paul excelled in. And the humility to step down and say, you know what, that actually isn't the right role for me. And the self-awareness to be like, I know myself well enough and I know what my strengths are. And I feel like I'm that way in real life. I know what my strengths are and I know when to hand it over and be like, there's someone better. There's definitely someone better for this job. That's an interesting take on it. Yeah, she does know who's best at what positions, but I think she knows, like what we started saying, that she has a certain level of tenacity and you know, adrenaline junkie, but in a good way, and like, you know, can sacrifice and in a way that maybe not everyone has. Like her and Owen really have that go the extra mile, be the last person, and it's not particularly a useful skill as lieutenant. I think, you know, historically, if you look back and look at what Judd's position and role was and what he excelled at, it's much more similar to what Paul is good at. And even though she would be good at delegating, we'd be missing her in the action. And she knows that she's the one who can go the extra mile. So to take herself out of that doesn't really make sense. I think there's a level of like awareness of her capability and her age and how that's actually on her side and blah, blah, blah. So it's like, use the time that you have and do it while you still have it. And then further down the line, when your career does progress, you take some time out, you step up into a new role. Because I'm sure Owen was exactly like Marjan is when he was in his 30s or late 20s. And, you know, the older you get, the harder the recovery is, the more wisdom you have, you know, and the more useful you are in different positions. Yeah, I think we're actually going to get into a bit of that when it gets to watching Paul become lieutenant, like the difficulty in then having to be the person who's like delegating as opposed to doing it yourself, and how that becomes really challenging. And I think that she would have had, and in the future, in some universe where the show continued, she would have struggled with it immensely. But what you will get to see is Paul struggling with it. It's not going to be easy breezy for him because he doesn't know how to do that either. And I think that happens when you step into any new job role where you're suddenly like, oh no. Growth can be scary and unsettling, and you see that for Paul, and then he gets handed down the wisdom from his elders who are like, actually, I've been in your position, it is hard, but A plus B, and you know, he learns sort of the ropes of his new position. You can imagine what it's like with Jonna's Proby, you know, like we have fun with it. We have a lot of fun with it, and there's really endearing moments where we do what we do best, which is sort of the interpersonal relationships and playing on the different dynamics that we have between us. I really like that Paul's stepping into this new position and Judd's coming in at a lower position, because we get to play with a lot of there's a lot of heartfelt moments, and then there's just a lot of piss taking, which I don't know what the American expression for that is. That's a very British, but yeah, lots of joking, lots of like, yeah, it's great, banter. That's for me to know. If I told you, I'd have to kill you. I don't think that's public knowledge. I think that's left up to interpretation. I can say that it is coming up, that he will be back. You will see him. There are developments, very wholesome developments, very different side to Marjan, a lot of giggling. And I certainly hadn't giggled that much on set for the last 5 years. So very cute to see her in a very different light, where she is not so much Firefox. And she's a bit uncomfortable and a bit like, oh, this is all new to me and out of sorts. And I think that that's the joy of getting to do a show for as many years as we've gotten to do it, is that you get to develop those things and you've earned that. And the people, because the audience becomes so familiar with your character that they see when there's an anomaly of character, that they see the development, that they can sort of pinpoint who you were 5 years ago, who you were before the relationship, what the relationships helped bring out of you. And with all that context, I think it makes you root harder, or like root even more for the couples to sort of, there are some, Marjan and Joe do encounter some difficulties, but I don't want to give any spoilers, but they encounter some difficulties, so therefore they encounter growth. The video interview, right? We can just watch this little moment and just... We're so close as a cast, and there was potential for so much more to happen. And I think the longer you're in something, sort of the juicier the character development gets, because the less establishing you have to do. And so it's sad to say goodbye, but we really are like, I mean, some of us joked about getting 126 tattoos. Like we really, I joke, but like I think it might still happen. There's quite a few of us who are like, yeah, I could do it, a little 126, and like my helmet's sitting here on my desk beside me, and it's a forever thing. It you know, Marjan and the 126 like has changed the course of my life and my friendships, and I can't really, you know, there's a duality because there's sadness and there's grief, but there's so much gratitude. And that was the main thing that I experienced this season, more gratitude and more shared gratitude amongst the cast than I think we'd ever had. Just to know how lucky we were to be, or how fortunate we were. I think there's a difference between luck and fortune. In my mind, luck is like super passive, and fortune is when you rolled the dice and the stars aligned, you were ready. So I think all of us as individuals were ready when we entered this chapter and did these 5 years together. And so we feel super fortunate to have experienced this. And so the gratitude was just abundant, and we sat around talking about our memories of the last 5 years, all the things that we were grateful for, what we're excited for in the future, the impact that we've made on each other's lives. So yeah, it was a very happy, friendly, sweet set this year. Not that it normally isn't, but you know, we just were very sentimental. We just sat around talking about, you know, nostalgia and sentiment a lot. But I'm super excited to see what everyone does next, you know. Jim and I discussed that. We were like, if we could take anything from this set and pretend it was an accident, what would we take? And I was like, tell the truth, I also took the stand that the helmet goes on off of Captain Strand's like office in the back. And I was like, if I'm gonna take the helmet, at least have it like aesthetically, like it just looks so glorious. Can I oh, mess, but there it is.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I took the stand that it was on, and that to me is like, yeah, me and Jim took it, and I don't know who, maybe Brian. It seems like something Brian would want.
I'll have to
We're just that way. Other people took a few things from sets and costumes and like, but if there's anything I think that symbolizes the whole journey, it has to be the helmet. I get very sentimental looking at it. I'm like, wow, it's really here in my office. It's really over. Yeah. A very, very explosive, very, very dramatic, very, very 911 Lone Star. Go big or go home for that closing chapter. Yeah, nothing short of the end of the world. It's a huge, huge rescue, much the same way as the like train derailment was, with that kind of budget and spectacle. But this time, it is not only other people whose lives are at risk. It's the 126. As an entire team, every single member of the 126. Yeah. Very, very fondly. Oh, I'm getting emotional. I haven't talked about it. Yeah, no, very, very fondly. Nothing but good memories, and just cool. Like, how cool was that? 5 years of doing that and like getting scripts every day and being like, oh, cool, what am I doing now? Oh, jumping off this, rappelling off that. Like, for me, action stuff has always really appealed to me. It's like a magnet, because I get to act and grow as an actor, but also like adventure and step into shoes of people who are way cooler than I could ever be, and get a taste of that. So I'm grateful. I have super fond memories. It was such a fun adventure. It was so explosive and enticing, and yeah. You know, when things are actually 502. When things air, they like are edited and cut together, and so you don't know how much time it takes, whether it's a 5-second clip or, you know, a 2.5 minute scene. You don't know how long it takes. But the day that I was down below and in the train derailment, and everybody else was up at the top of the hill dealing with stuff, where Marjan was barking orders, and I had like a full day where it was just me and guest stars, and I just was running and fire and screaming and jumping and stunts and explosions, and it felt, and there was a lot of very kind and flattering rhetoric from directors and ADs and around set that I could hear, and that was being said to me, which is always nice, about how maybe I'm ready for my own show, and well, there wasn't a maybe, but you know, that they would want to see me doing more of that, and being there without the rest of the 126 gave me sort of a taste, which was a really nice experience, and I'm very grateful to the writers for doing that, of like what it could be like in the future, to be sort of the lead or supporting lead in something where I get to do a lot of action and a lot of heavy lifting physically. So it doesn't really show because the scene cuts together very short, but that was like a 14-hour day of nonstop running, sweating, jumping, stunts, explosions, and just like being the woman around all these, and being a young woman, you know, around all these grown men, and being the one with the authority feels good and is absolutely justifiable. And I don't ever have to question my place or how I fit in those environments. That the character has definitely taught me that, but also the more experience I have, the more I'm like, there's nothing to say that it can't be me. Just because someone is older, taller, bigger, stronger, doesn't mean that they're the best person for the job. So yeah, 502, that day on set was probably one of the best days I've ever had. This is not me like saying, oh yes, I know something you don't know. That's me saying I would be more than thrilled to. That is up to Tim and Rashad. But it would be super fun to come back into the other 911 and just sort of pop in at some point as Marjan and get to step back into her shoes. It would also be really cool to re-enter the 911 universe as a whole different person, but I know that's not going to happen. But they were like, because this is Marjan. And I'm like, no, it's Marjan's sister, cousin, long-lost relative. Who knows? Mateo did it. Yeah, that was really cool. And I love them. I love all those actors. They're all fantastic. So it would be really fun to get to play in that world again. And I think that I'll miss the quirky nature of our universe that's been established. And I don't think that it's something I will encounter again. That balance of like drama, but super quirky, kind of harmonica in the mouth, all the crazy things that we've done and that 911 has done, I think only sort of exists in our universe with that balance. And so I will miss that, and I would love the chance to sort of pop back in and do some version of it again.